Hey guys, just wanted to do my review of Arrow Season 6, Episode 5, Deathstroke Returns. So we have two major plots going on, which of course is what is implied in this title and what happened in the end of war. Oliver is going to help Slade find his son because it turns out that during Slade's absence from his life, went on to become an ACES agent just like Slade was. Um, when prior and during his time on Lian Yu, and apparently he got caught and now is rotting in a prison somewhere in Casnia. So he doesn't need Oliver to become the Green Arrow. He specifically tells him just go that he wants him to be the act as a diplomat. Um, Oliver's reluctant to go and and have to lie to his son, break the promise to his son to not be a vigilante anymore, but he feels like he's gonna kick himself if he doesn't or I guess like Felicity convinces him that he's gonna be kicking himself if he doesn't help uh I guess Slade out, and I guess he feels like he needs to go there to I guess go there to make sure Slade isn't taking more aggressive measures to break his son out of prison. So they go there, they talk to him in a format that Slade has a history with, which I kind of smiled, which they were when the guy referred to him as the Terminator because Slade was known as Deathstroke the Terminator at one point in the comics. And they get info on the prison that Deathstroke's being, Joe Wilson's being held in, and Oliver and Slade just gives Oliver two tickets to London and some money to also like the tickets like one for Oliver, one for Joe. Slade doesn't want Joe to know that he was helping to get him out of prison because he feels like Joe's going to look down upon him for his time as Deathstroke for all the horrible stuff he's done. And we do get like flashbacks to when like 13 years prior when Slade took his son on a camping trip and he was saying he had to go away for a while, and Joe kept asking questions about, if he's really a pilot, then how come we don't get to go on free trips? Um, he just and Slade just lies saying it's like, oh, because I work for a really cheap airline, so they don't cover the fares for employees and their families. And then you realize that there's this family of tourists who come take a picture of Slade and Joe, and it turns out that the whole camping trip just seems to double as a cover for him trying to attract. He puts on this like Deathstroke outfit. It's like similar to the one that he wore in Lian Yu, and he has a guy at Knife Point asking about, I guess somebody who got waylaid, and this is where he finds out about Yao Fei and how he's been marooned on Lian Yu, and then he slits the guy's throat when he tries to attack Slade, and you get the sense that somebody was watching Slade as that happened, so you have a feeling like Joe probably saw it, even though they probably won't reveal it until the next week's episode, because the flashbacks just end with them packing and their trip ending. So Oliver goes to the prison to get Joe released, but the warden says that Joe died in a prison yard brawl, but now I guess they both eventually become suspicious, and it turns out that because they can't they both neither one of them they're not being allowed to see the body, so Slade's getting pissed off and is wondering what happened to his son, and you find out that he was really abducted by this group of mercenaries called the Jackals, and Felicity is able to get it on camera. And Oliver wants to go with him because he doesn't want Slade to do anything too drastic and get himself killed. But Slade like drugged Oliver's drink and decides to go after the Jackals on his own. And at least there's like really cool fight scene where he is just like Slade is just mowing through these guys. Like, they're firing their guns, like, but Slade's just like throwing them against the wall, stabbing them with his sword. He just becomes like one man army. It's just like the coolest thing I've seen is him just like mowing down Talia al Ghul's henchmen from this Arrow season 5 finale. It's probably even better because we get to see it's more of like more Slade in action than more Slade in action as mowing people down in like glorious fashion. And you're surprised like how much blood they show, which is probably like the virtue of having Arrow at like a later time slot. And you know, Oliver's about to maybe after getting a note from Slade, Slade leaves Oliver a note. He's about to go back to Star City, but he gets a phone call from William asking, you know, was he able to help his friend, and saying like, oh, I'm sorry he couldn't do, how he's sorry that Oliver couldn't do more for him, and that convinces Oliver to kind of go after Slade anyway. But just as Slade is being like, oh, and just even though Slade's like mowing through these people, he gets to this like giant room where it's like he's completely surrounded by more of the jackals. He finds out that informant that he was, I guess, quote unquote friends with actually the ringleader, and the latter calls the truth with Slade, in which he puts down his sword, and Slade calls the ringleader out, saying like he's not smart enough to run this organization. He wants to see his boss, and predictably, and Oliver shows up just in time to see this, where you find out that Joe is actually the leader of the mercenaries. Like his breakout was like they were just actually just breaking him out. They weren't kidnapping him, but it was sort of like kind of hinted at and given away in the Arrow season 6 trailer before this, in which Joe gives this whole speech about how, oh, Dad, I learned from you that there are only winners and losers in this world, and an eye for an eye, and so now it's going to be interesting realizing that his son's kind of going down this dark path that Slade was once on. And the other subplots, like back in Star City, there's a councilwoman who wants to speak about the anti-vigilante referendum, and still really was trying to like campaign to like get it passed, even though it's been put up for a citywide vote. But that puts her in the crosshairs with a vigilante who's back in Star City. But the surprising thing is that I was shocked that I knew they were going to reveal his identity in the 2-part. I was surprised that they revealed it like within like the first 5 minutes of the episode, when Dinah, out of costume, attacks him with this canary cry and cracks his visor. And so you finally see him take off the mask, and you realize, and it's revealed to be Vincent Sabel, who is actually Dinah's former partner with the Central City Police Department, and also her boyfriend, who you thought in the flashback in Dinah's debut episode was shot by Sean Sonis after the particle accelerator went off in Central City. And she's, of course, like, she's totally completely pissed off that it's like how much she went down this like dark path, and she's like and she like gave up her whole life trying to like avenge him and hunt down and eventually play judge and jury and take out Vincent's killer, only to find out that he was alive and that he become this like complete sociopath. And she's so pissed that she's wants him dead and wants to make sure it sticks. And Diggles tries to be a voice of reason, saying that Vincent could have killed her in the past before, when he ambushed Oliver's limo back in season 5. She did it, and he didn't, but Dinah's not being reasoned with, and she insists that she just go alone for when the councilwoman's going to go on TV and do this like huge broadcast, in spite of the fact that she's putting herself at risk. And we still have like multiple scenes where it's like you still have FBI Watson, who's like calling. It's like I think like last week or something, she called in Wild Dog and Quentin for an interrogation. Now he's calling in Felicity for an interrogation, and now she's like antagonistic and badgering why Diggle was at the scene of the crime during the councilwoman's first assassination attempt. I feel like this character is just becoming like one note and completely annoying and just almost just a stone cold bitch. Like, and it's like she obviously has some kind of beef with, she knows Oliver, she knows about Oliver, she knows about Team Arrow. She has some kind of beef with him that he just wants to put Oliver in a jail cell, but it's just like, what is it? It just feels like she's being antagonistic just for the sake of antagonism, and it just feels like she's just an annoying presence. And it's like, I feel like the writers either need to flesh this character out or just like get rid of her. Like, she's just becoming insufferable the more and more I see of her. But anyway, during the TV broadcast, even the lights go out and Vigilante can be seen in the rafters, and Black Canary goes to attack Vincent and tries to actually take Diggle's advice and try to like reason with him. But then there's a cop but then the cop shows up and tries to gun down Vigilante when he doesn't cooperate, and he takes another bullet to the head. And Black Canary tells the cop to go get help, and you realize that the particle accelerator also turned Vincent into a metahuman and gave him like a Wolverine-like healing factor, which is how he survived the gunshot to the head by the cop and the gunshot to the head by Sonus. And he just still goes on this rant about, how Dinah and him were cops for 10 years and like what did they accomplish, and Dinah says plenty. He's not convinced that they did enough. But I don't know, I feel like there's more to the story about like there's got to be like a specific incident that caused this break in his psyche and to go down this the path that he's on. And he said the reason why he didn't even contact Dinah for 4 years, because he didn't want to get distracted in his mission. And Dinah thinks there's there's no humanity left, but she can't even bring herself to turn him in, and she lets Vincent get away. But in her car, she does find like a matchbox with a paper rose in it, which are things that was like mementos that Vincent used to give to her when they were dating. So she realizes that Diggle was right, that even though he's kind of off his rocker, he still has a soft spot for her. I mean, but as far as the reveal is concerned, I wasn't surprised that it was going to be her ex-boyfriend, just because I kept finding out through secondhand information on Instagram. Like, people keep posting, it's like, oh, Dinah's going to have a rivalry with both Black Siren and Vigilante this season. And it became kind of became kind of obvious because Mark Guggenheim kept hinting that Vigilante would be somebody we know, but he's known to overhype the shit out of everything. But yeah, it was somebody we know, but not something we were like personally like knew very well. It was just somebody who showed up in a flashback, and you only kind of like slightly emotionally invested in Vigilante now, just because of his history with Dinah. So it didn't really quite as much of a punch to it as the Prometheus reveal, but it's the one that the one that seems to make the most sense, just based on the Guggenheim tease. Like, I never would have bought it if it was just like if it was Curtis's ex-husband Paul. Like, Pike could have been a viable candidate, just because he has like the military or police training, to act as like a marksman or a sniper. But I don't know if it would have had like the same I don't know if how much of more of an impact it would have had if Vigilante was revealed to be Pike instead. But I don't know. It's a little bit like it's kind of a lackluster reveal, and probably the only like real downside to it is that it wasn't somebody that we knew or we were like really that invested in. And that's the only thing about that's one I complain about the episode. But the Deathstroke stuff was great, but I don't know, maybe we'll get more invested in this character just because once we get a little more of his backstory, but again, didn't quite pack the punch that I was hoping for. But what do you guys I mean, how do you guys feel? How do you guys feel about the reveal? How do you feel about all the Deathstroke stuff? Are we looking forward to part 2 of the Deathstroke centric storyline they're doing on Arrow right now? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.